Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Empathic Designer podcast by Vylan. I'm your host Vaidishwaran. So this week I am at San Diego, California for the ATD23 conference, and this is going to be a series of videos that I'm going to be posting every day after the conference, just to share my experience at the ATD23 conference and some of my reflections and learnings as part of the conference. So my day started. Today is my first day at the conference, of course, and my day started at 7:15 in the morning, where I was picked up by the shuttle service organized by the conference at the curbside of my hotel, and I think that's a brilliant idea to really pick up folks and bus them to the conference. And of course, I got to meet a few interesting people on my way to the conference, so that was really good. Then I proceeded to the registration. Of course, I had the VIP package, so the registration process was really, really smooth. I got my networking night ticket at Petco Park, and that's happening on Tuesday. So I'm really looking forward to that one as well. And from there, I went on to attend the orientation session. So the orientation session was presented by Angela Stopper, and I think that was a very informative session. So I got a lot of inputs in terms of how to navigate through the conference and what are the various options that are available. And of course, after this session, I went on to check the ATD Central. So there we had a lot of information in terms of the offerings from ATD. And the ATD bookstore was also open. So I browsed through some of the books. I've earmarked some of them that I'll be buying. I'll probably be getting those tomorrow, because I've booked a large part of tomorrow to the expo and of course the bookstore. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time on that. So I'll probably talk a little bit more about the bookstore in my video from tomorrow. From there, I went on to check the VIP lounge just to get a feel for what it was. It's a nice place. You've got good desks and chairs where you can sit quietly, and if you have some work that you want to catch up, you can do that. A few people were there at the lounge. Personally, I felt it was better to move around, because that way you get to meet a lot more people than being cooped up in lounge. Of course, I think it's a little too early to judge. I'll be talking more about my experience with the VIP package toward the end of this series. From there, I went on to attend my first session, which was Decoding Black Boxes of Assessment Tools by Sharon Wingron. It was a very interactive session, and we had parent share activities happening throughout the session. And we were mainly discussing on what do we want our assessments to do for our organization, and the way in which we look at assessments. And we were also talking about some of the risks involved in creating our own assessments for the organization, because there are a lot of tools that are available online, there are a lot of free resources that are available online, but we were talking about how it is really important to have a scientific basis for creating, administering, and debriefing assessments. And we were also having these parent share activities where I was paired with a gentleman from Singapore. We were talking about different assessments like MBTI and Harrison's, and we were just talking about some of our personal experiences with these assessment tools and some of the pros and cons. It was a very stimulating discussion. And we then shifted the conversation to talk more about the importance of knowing when not to use assessments. So we were talking about assessments in terms of where the assessment tools are either too complex or irrelevant to the organization or to the people. We were also talking about some of the risks involved in improper debrief or situations where no debrief really happens. And finally, we were also talking about the importance of the organization to follow through on the results of the assessment so that the employees are in the path of continuous improvement. So I think these were some very pertinent points, and a lot of people from the audience were also sharing some of their experiences in working with these tools. And we were also talking in terms of what are some of the important criteria that we need to be looking at while selecting assessment tools. And the top two were the scientific basis of the evaluation that's being made, and of course the ease of administration. And I have to echo with this because in my experience with using assessment tools, these two have been my top priorities as well, because I have used assessment tools in one of the train the trainer programs that I've designed, and these two were my top criteria when it came to selection of assessment tools. And it's good to know that the world also looks at it the same way. That was good learning for me. And so we concluded the session with that, and I think it was really informative. And one of the things that this particular session got me to think was the importance of focusing on assessments and ROIs and measurement, because I mean, that's something that I've never been really close to. I mean, I've done a bit of that, but I'm not really close to ROIs and measurements. And I think one of my takeaways from this conference is I need to spend more time and really consciously learn more on these topics. I've earmarked a couple of books at the ATD store for this, and I'm probably going to be picking them up tomorrow. And from there, I went on to the international luncheon. I think this was very good in terms of meeting some amazing folks and some wonderful networking opportunity. So we had those big round tables where we had 6 to 8 people in a table, and I got to meet a lot of people on this very interesting people on my table. They served great food, and of course, meeting all these wonderful people from such diverse backgrounds, it is an amazing opportunity to network. So if you are attending the ATD conference outside the US, I would highly recommend the international luncheon. It's really good opportunity to network, and of course we also had a bit of photo op with the ATD team on a country-wise basis. So we had a lot of people from India, and what really surprised me was I got to meet people from Canada, South Korea, from Brazil on my table. And of course, I also had a gentleman on my table from India who literally lives a couple of streets away from where I am. So talking about a small world. So that was a very interesting experience, and we had some great conversations as well. And from the international luncheon, I went on to what I expected to be my highlight of the day, the play on simulation session by Brittany and Anne. And of course, they never fail. They are an amazing duo, and the session was an absolute blast. I mean, I had so much learning happening in that session, and of course, it was wonderful to meet Brittany and Anne after so many years. So we had a lot of exchanges, and we were reminiscing on some of our good old days. And coming to the session itself, we were talking about simulations and identifying the right opportunities to create simulations. And we were also talking about the different types of learning simulations. So Brittany and Anne took us through 4 different types of simulations. And what really struck me as part of this session is because when we talk about simulations, we normally talk about a lot of hypotheticals. We normally talk about stuff that we've seen somewhere or stuff that we've heard about from somewhere. But this particular session was so good because Anne and Brittany were actually showing stuff that they've actually created in these 4 different types of simulations, and were sharing their real life experiences, which was very enriching. And of course, we also talked about the methodology for creating a high level plan for your simulation projects. And we were also given a real nice handout, um, sort of, it's going to act like a blueprint for that. And we were also talking a bit about the impact of simulations on the learners. So my personal takeaway from this session was the importance of designing and building simulations that are realistic and relevant, because these are, I think, the two main areas, or rather the two biggest challenges that simulations have, irrespective of the nature of the simulation, whether it's going to be a branch simulation that we do as part of an e-learning to a virtual reality. I think these are the two main things that we need to circle back and make sure that we are hitting, checking those two things, so that whatever simulations that we create are good. And finally, Brittany and Anne were also talking about the importance of having strategic partnerships, and why it's not really required that you do everything by yourself, and how it's important to have strategic partners who are specialists in what they do, so that your development cycle and your learning process is really quick, and you really get to see great results on whatever you have visualized. And I think that is something that is really good. And I'm, of course, I'm going to be checking out some of these great folks at the expo tomorrow as well. Then finally, I moved on to my last session of the day, on learning objectives by Scott and Rick. And of course, Scott is again an ex-colleague of mine, so we were working together in one of my previous organizations. So as always, this was another phenomenal session. So we were talking about the problems of learning objectives and the importance of having performance objectives over learning objectives. And we also got to do a lot of practice. So we had a lot of activities happening, a lot of conversation, and we also got to write a lot of performance objectives and converting learning objectives into performance objectives. And it was a very engaging and a very interactive session. We had a lot of back and forth happening, and in fact, there was also a very interesting discussion that happened on whether you need to put your learning or performance objectives on your course, whether it's a ILT or an e-learning. So there were again two schools of thoughts on that. So we had a very stimulating discussion on learning objectives. And my personal takeaway from this particular session is the value of having performance based objectives, in terms of making sure that you deliver only the content that is required for your learners to generate actionable outcomes. And of course, that's really going to have an impact on the duration of the program. And also, we will be in a better position to target our offerings to the right audience. So these were a couple of takeaways that I had from this session. Of course, this was my last session, so I just went around one more time, just looking for some familiar faces, just exchanging some notes, having a quick chat, and of course, we said our goodbyes until tomorrow, and I just walked back to my hotel. So this was my first day at the ATD23 conference. I think I thoroughly enjoyed the sessions and the kind of people that I met, and I'm really looking forward to day 2 of the ATD23. And I'll come back to you again tomorrow evening. Tomorrow is going to be a long day for me, so this video might come in a little late tomorrow, but it will come out. So until then, have a nice day, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.